Our next guest is an author. He's more than an author, actually. He has a book. He has a bunch of books, but his latest book is called Lessons in Leadership. He's a TV broadcaster, motivational speaker. He's also a doctor, PhD. Let me welcome to the show, Steve Adubato.
How is my friend?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
You are doing. Let me tell you something. I don't know why you have me on. I was just trying to figure out how we can have a more meaningful, peaceful, civil dialogue. And your guest from London was asking, how do you stay so positive? You started laughing. You said the answer is, in quote, too many Americans lack humanity, and they also lack humility. So the bottom line is, what you are saying, I'm not just saying this to kiss your butt because you're my friend, but you are sending out a positive message where people can disagree without being nasty and negative and hurtful and potentially violent. Your forum, your format, this discussion with different points of view is what we need more of, and we ain't getting it in many places.
Yeah, and yet we still occasionally get a call here or there with folk that just don't get it, and it bothers me. It boggles my mind. I was watching the Trevor Noah clip earlier. I played a couple of them from last night.
I heard them.
And he said, what are we looking at the same thing? And it's clear to me that we probably aren't looking at the same thing when we look at, like Philando Castile's first Facebook Live video.
It's just brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal.
So do you see the other side of it though, Steve Adubato?
So listen, I'm not going to respectfully, Karen, I'm not going to do the other side. I will tell you, I am pro-cop. I have lots of cop friends. I grew up in Newark, New Jersey, as you well know.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little kid during the riots of the rebellion, if you will, the 1967 situation. Here's the deal, though. I don't believe it's mutually exclusive to respect and appreciate the job that cops do. And look at that video and ask yourself, what will it take? What will it take to get a rightful, just conviction of a cop who, I'm not saying he's a bad guy, but the cop in this case said he was, quote, afraid. And if Castile's clearly stated, I have a legal firearm, there is a 4-year-old child in the back seat, and I'm not sure what he's afraid of. The question then we have to ask is, if I were black right now, what would I be thinking about this country, about law enforcement, about how safe I am on the road? So that Richard Pryor clip that you just played is as relevant today as ever, and that is painful and difficult. And the fact that people don't want to accept that, you don't have to be a bleeding heart liberal. You don't have to be, someone who's an apologist for the African American community. You just have to be somebody who has humanity and cares about other people and would never want that done to them, their loved ones. And I don't understand why people are so damn convinced that they are so right and everyone else is wrong, and whatever happens to them, I just disagree with you politically. And so if you get shot, you get killed, you get attacked, and like the congressman did there.
Right.
I feel for them the same way I feel for a Democrat.
Right, because you're the strangest thing, and we grew up around the same time.
We're right around the corner.
Yep, in East Orange, you were in Newark. As a matter of fact, I think my dad actually worked with your dad at some point, and we'll talk about that at another time off mic. But, Steve, it's weird. There was partisan politics, of course. There's the Reagan era. It was Carter, Reagan. I don't remember morality or humanity going along party lines where, we're looking at healthcare right now, and that's a partisan issue. It's not a humanity, it's not like, okay, do we care that people are sick and should they be helped? And do we want people to go bankrupt because they have a disease? At some point, the partisan thing, we really need to revisit it, because I think that and race are destroying this nation.
So, to your point, do I have issues with the Affordable Care Act, otherwise known as Obamacare? Yes. Do I have a belief that it should be tweaked and fixed and made better? Yes. Do I get concerned about small business people who can't afford health insurance because now it's mandated, et cetera? Yes. However, the people who want to justify and think it makes political sense and don't understand the humanity of 23 or 24 million Americans who potentially would lose their health insurance in a life-and-death situation, that pre-existing conditions may or may not likely not be covered. The fact that people who are poor are disproportionately targeted for this, you tell me how that's a damn purely political issue and not an issue of humanity. And I always, and just because I grew up and went to Catholic schools and we always ask, what would Jesus do? It isn't even a religious question.
Right.
It is a question of humanity. I don't think Jesus would be sitting there going, 23, 24 million Americans, let's not worry about them because we want to give a tax benefit to the richest Americans in the process, and Obamacare wasn't perfect. That's insanity, and that's not political. That's vicious and violent and hurtful.
You make so much sense. I feel like we're having a love fest right now because I'm like, what in the world? Why, but I know why we agree because we because
we're old school and we were taught well.
Yeah. We come from similar backgrounds and we
don't agree on certain issues.
Yeah,
but we agree on humanity.
Right. So what's it going to take? You asked the question. I'm going to throw it back at you. We're talking with Steve Adubato. He is a veteran broadcaster. He's my buddy. Of course, you've seen him everywhere. He's got his own show. Steve, actually, you have a couple of shows. And
on PBS in the local New York, New Jersey area, and I get to occasionally do some national stuff with you and my friends at MSNBC and Joy Reid and some great folks there. But what's it going to take? Anyone who says they have a knee-jerk, one silver, I hate to use an expression, bullet, way to fix it is full of bull. I will tell you this. The more platforms, the more forums there are, and I'm not just saying again because I'm on with you right now, where people can agree to disagree in a civil fashion. And no, I don't want to pile on the president because it's too easy to do, but the president has a responsibility not to speak in such reckless terms, not during the campaign when people are protesting and say, kick their ass right now and I'll pay the legal bills. Because he sent a message, and he continues to send the message when he talks about the mayor over in London who happens to be Muslim and talks about him in such horrible ways and just happens to be Muslim. When he talks about this Muslim ban, when he's talking about people and calling them names and delegitimizing them, when he talks that way and he promoted violence during the campaign, you take responsibility for the whack jobs out there who listen to you and think you have just given them a license to do what they think they're supposed to do as zealots. I'm not saying he's responsible directly for the shootings that take place, but the liberals who do it, and by the way, I have a problem with Kathy Griffin. I can't stand Trump as a president. I think he's a terrible president. But what she did contributed in a negative way as well because it was getting in the gutter, it wasn't funny, and it was promoting violence. And so, to me, that's not political. That's humanity.
Right. No, so back at you, Steve Adubato. Back at you, and you guys can follow him on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
ADU. I hate to promote, but ADUBATO. I know you have a huge following at Steve Adubato.
Yep, we tweeted it out as well. So guys, just please follow him because he's doing some wonderful things out there. So back at you though. But he got elected. And not only did he get elected, but, this whole referendum against Trump in Georgia, District 6,
didn't go. That young man was going to win.
Didn't work. Karen Handels, she's going to go to Congress. Oh, South Carolina, didn't work. So clearly, Steve Adubato, you're on the wrong side. You're on the wrong side.
Okay, Karen, and so are you. But here's the thing. If the side, by the way, I don't even call it an anti-Trump side. What I call it is a side that tries to promote some sense of civility, some sense of we can agree to disagree, but the fact is I'll try to listen to your point of view, and I will not call you a name. I will not demonize you or delegitimize you in the process. If that's the side I'm on, and that's the side that's losing, Karen, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, but it's not helping the country.
Listen,
so how do we? I'm saying I hear you.
We got to fight the fight every day. We got to fight it every day. And listen, I know that sounds Pollyanna and corny, but I will not give in. I will not give in to the polarized, nasty, negative, vicious, potentially violent rhetoric just because you got to fight, fire with fire. I'm not buying it. I'm not getting in the gutter.
Okay. All right. Lessons in leadership. You have a book. It's pretty powerful, and you give us lessons. You talk to people, and you talked about leadership. You mentioned our president, who I agree is a disaster, just personality wise. It's just a bad look for children growing up to say you can aspire to be this. It's embarrassing because you wouldn't want your 4-year-old to act the way he does.
Agreed.
But he's our president, and he's probably not going anywhere. So, in light of that. I hear what you're saying. Yes, we need to vote. We need to show up for the midterms. We need to get more politically active. We need to be more engaged. We need to live by example and start treating more. But there's something fundamentally really wrong in this country that no matter how much you and I and others like us decide we're going to get involved, there's still a nasty haze, a pall over this country.
I don't disagree. But here's the thing. If Trump's quote-unquote approval level is in the 35, 36% range, what that really means, Karen, is that there are a significant number of people who don't appreciate his, even if they agree with some of his policies. He's not wrong on everything, but they don't appreciate, don't like, and don't respect his lack of civility, his lack of discipline, his just lashing out at people. There are the vast majority of Americans who need to speak out against that, even those who voted. There are friends of mine, Karen, who voted for Donald Trump, who actually believe in Trump. And you know something? I found that I couldn't even talk to them and say, well, listen, when he said such and such about those women and how he grabbed them, sexually because he could, when he said the things that he has said about, Senator McCain, who's a Republican, right? Most of my friends who voted for him kept blowing it off like, oh, come on, you're making too much of that. And I said to them, look, you would kick your kid's butt, frankly, just kick his ass if I went old school in Newark, which was okay at the time, if they ever talked that way. And they argued that it was different for him. And I will say this to you. Here's my problem with that. It's intellectually dishonest. And I'm going to say we need to call that out every time. Republicans, Democrats, Independents, whether you like Trump or not, or his policies, you cannot accept that. And people who do are contributing to the problem.
How do we get more people like Steve Adubato? Because I can say that, and it's dismissed, right? It's sort of like I mentioned earlier in the show when a so-called white person hears me go off the rails as I do from day to day, talking about these issues and talk about them very passionately. And I think I bring facts and books and I bring on guests and we talk about it. They hear Charlie Brown's Teacher. It doesn't resonate with them.
Like, why?
Yeah, exactly. When you say it, it resonates because you're somebody they can relate to.
You know what, Karen, I appreciate what you're saying, but after this, when I look on my Twitter feed, I am going to get a significant number of people who probably are not fans of your show right now, who will say, you bleeding heart liberal, you are a hack Democrat who is just anti-Trump and you are part of the problem. And you want to know something? I can't respond to that. I can't play into that. Mm-hmm. That is a point of view that someone has because they have stopped listening to you and me, Karen. Don't kid yourself. Just because you're black and I'm white. There are people who discount me as soon as I start talking because the first thing I say that they disagree with, they just shut me out because I could never say anything that's possibly relevant, and that's what too many folks who are Trump lovers do. And by the way, a lot of liberals do it too.
No, it's true.
And we listen to what we want to hear that reinforces our point of view, and it just makes it worse.
Well, this is how we got here. When we started being able to curate our news instead of just getting Walter Cronkite and David Brinkley giving us our news, when we started being able to tune into news we wanted to hear, and not the news, but news we wanted to hear, it divided this nation because now no one's forced to have to actually digest actual facts. They can just digest what they want to. How do we can't put that genie back in the bottle is my point.
No, you can't.
Do we ignore those people? Do we just write them off as, okay, they'll get it or they won't, and we got to focus on the people that we can reach? Or do we try to reach them?
I would argue with the limited time, limited resources, limited patience we have, Karen Hunter, I would say this. Let those folks think what they want, do what they want, believe what they want, and focus on those who are either more open-minded or close to the fence, who potentially are open-minded and could listen to another point of view other than their own without being vicious, nasty, name-calling, and demonize and delegitimize you. There are a significant number of people who are sickened by what's going on and would never want their children to act that way and weren't taught that way. We got to find those people. We've got to connect with those people, and there are enough of them out there.
I couldn't agree with you more. You know what? It's amazing to me, how much we agree, and I think it's a testament to see America. So this doesn't have to be a black or white thing, it doesn't have to be I'm from here, you're from there. At some point we can meet, and you know this. Ideologically, we can probably find 5 issues that we can battle over.
5 big ones.
Yeah.
But we will never, you and I will, we've worked together on air, and by the way, you're coming on our PBS show after this. Okay. We'll make sure it happens. And every time you've done it, and we've anchored shows together. The fact is this: we can always disagree and step back and go, let me try to look at what Karen's saying here. Even if I don't agree, I'm trying to understand. And we're coming from. We lack the humanity and the humility and the potential. We're so damn convinced that we are so damn right that Karen's got to be wrong. That's intellectually vapid. And that's the relationship you and I have never had. And trust me, there are some big issues we don't agree on, but I am curious about your point of view, and I could potentially learn from you. Could you imagine that?
Yeah. Well, Chapter 3 in Lessons in Leadership, you can't lead others until you learn to lead yourself. And part of that is knowing yourself and knowing what you don't know. And so we appreciate you always being here. I want you to, maybe we can make this a regular thing. You just popping in.
Listen, I should be so lucky to connect with your audience on a regular basis and be able to engage with you. It's an honor every time with you. You're a great friend. You asked the question, what should we do? The last thing I'll tell you is just keep doing what you're doing.
You too, brother. I appreciate you. Steve Adubato, thank you so much for being here today.
Love you, Karen. Take care.
Love you too.